Alright, Parth, let's see if I can catch you like the field theory or theory of everything from space-time general. We don't know in quantum mechanics. Jesus looking guy out there, and he's like, we don't have answers to
I
these.
want to discuss one of the
See if I can
absolute
get you.
core foundations that a theory of quantum mechanics is based on.
Nobody knows why wave function exists because there's a purpose to them. They exist to us because they're useful and interesting.
Theories in physics are often based on a set of ideas that we assume are true. In some cases, these ideas seem to make sense to us, and in other cases, as we'll see shortly, these ideas are just a big WTF. Either way, these ideas that we assume to be true, in order to build a mathematical theory, are known as axioms or
So let
postulates.
me begin by having my widest margin. I like to
rules
do
that
the first
govern
page on my
theory
Vitruvian Man system.
This is the first part in a series of videos where we'll discuss the various
Yes,
postulates.
the first
or
part.
rules
We're not
of
disagreeing on
quantum
the
mechanics. But
perfect
before we
square.
look at the
We're
first
gonna
postulate of quantum
put to this
mechanics,
thing
let me give you an
that
example of
determines
some of
wherever
the
you are
other
on the cover.
postulates used in another theory that may be a bit more
That's
familiar
gonna
to us.
slide into
Let's
everything
look
by
at the
scale,
kinetic
and you're gonna
theory
start to
of gases.
scale.
This is
Which
the
one
main
of
theory we
these
use to
is
predict
useful?
how gases should
The
behave
wave
in real
function
life. One
could
of the
hit
assumptions we
on
make about the gas that we're trying
Lagrangian
to
like that,
understand
some
using
vector
the kinetic
positions,
theory
just
of gases
NTF
is that
beginning,
it is made up of lots of
NTFN, and that's
little
chemistry
hard
because
spherical
you need some
particles
reality
that are so
and
small that the total volume of
relativity
these
to kind of give you
particles
amounts
is much
or types
smaller
of metal.
than the volume
It's
of the
like I need
container
metal
that they're
for a
in.
bracket, not a
That
samurai
this is
sword.
a reasonable
I could
assumption
use
to
pig
make
iron,
when the
you
gas
know what I mean?
is
Like,
indeed in a fairly large container. But what happens
Vitruvian Man
when the
page,
container
first
becomes
page.
small enough
Now if I
that
set
this
to the second
assumption
page,
starts to break down?
this bad puppy right here.
Simple. Our model also starts to break down. Our theory starts to break down. In this scenario, our mathematical theory or model
Alright, the
is
pain
not
train
going
for
to
field
fully
theory
accurately
into
model our real gas.
this, and I
So
actually
that's
laid
a
them
very
out
quick
over each
discussion
other.
of some of the assumptions
But we're going to
or
keep going
postulates
here
of the
because we're going to
kinetic
talk
theory of
about
gases. We're thinking about small, hard, spherical particles whose
What is
total
this one?
volume
Yes.
is much smaller than the volume of their container. For a more in-depth
some
discussion,
stuff about
some
wave
more assumptions made by
functions,
the kinetic theory of gases,
things
check out this video
about
up here. But the point here is that the kinetic theory of gases is based on some things that we assume to be true, our postulates.
numbers and mentions and
Let's now take a look
magnetisms.
at one of the postulates of quantum mechanics, or at least the most commonly accepted
If the
formulation
graph was
of
working
quantum mechanics
correctly
at
to
moment, known
the
as
mirror force
Copenhagen
here,
interpretation. In this theory,
this
the
becomes
first
the
postulate
correct answer.
says that for
But
any quantum system that we happen
at
to be
any rate,
studying,
inside their
there
Tesla,
must be an associated wave
Parth,
function
me,
psi.
mathematically, to some
So,
of the people
for
I
example, if we're
talk
studying a
to,
single
mathematically, they'd be
electron,
like, well,
then this is our system.
the rabbit track, you know, is I'm
Directly
going to give you a
related
bunch
to
of this
the
stuff, and
system is a mathematical
you go
quantity
find me math.
known as
And that's the wave function. We teach you
The
that
wave
thing
function
because that's
represents our system or our
particle
electron,
enrichment,
because it
wave
is meant
function,
to have
gravity
a
waves.
single
Like I'm in
value
the
at
stone
every
mill, but
point
I
in
don't
space
actually
and
FMA
in
you
time.
in any way. I don't
To
actually
understand
hit
why
you,
this
but
is
you feel
useful,
dead.
let's first imagine that we are studying our electron
What
at
if I
one
somebody kill you?
particular moment in time. Let's say exactly 4 p.m. UK time on Tuesday, which is coincidentally also when I
I'm doing
upload
one
videos to
page.
this channel. But anyway,
I mean,
let's say we just want to focus on the electron at one particular
when you actually
instant
open them
in
up, you
time.
get a 4x4.
For this instant in
And if
time,
you flip them
we
down
can
with
work
another
out the
two
wave
set of them,
function of this
the
electron.
mathematics.
As I said before, this wave function can have a value at
Not
every
just that
point in
page,
space for this given point in time.
Hadron Collider
even if
here.
this value
And
is
anything you
zero
want to
in
split
some
up, you want to lay
places.
books over it
To
and
see
say
how
that
this
is
wave
the
function has anything to do with our electron, let's simplify things even further and imagine that its value
Stone
is
Mills
zero
wave
everywhere
function, maybe?
except for along this line in space.
No.
We can now plot a graph of the wave function value at every
I
point
can
along this line.
plot a
end
graph
up looking
of
something
certain
like
things.
this.
And I know during
Now, in
those things
reality,
that
the
sometimes
wave
it's about
function
being a
has some
scientist. Well,
value
the thing
at
about having
every
MRIs,
point
we
in
learn
space,
things we
meaning
didn't
it
even
will have
realize
some
we were
value
looking
even
for.
between the points withdrawn.
Figuring out
It's
something
actually
about a
not
black
set of
hole,
dots
but
on
now a
the
lot of
graph,
that
but rather a
hillside's dug
continuous
up.
line. But how
Black
does this
body
continuous
radiation,
line
number of
correspond to
mentions,
our system?
what's the...
Well,
They
this
obviously
is
figured
how.
out that
If we
the
take
spooky
our
monster
wave
under the
function
sheet that
and
nobody
square it,
figured out, and they
technically
have the
we take its
highest
square
return on it for
modulus,
some way.
and what we find is a probability
Psi.
distribution, or in other words, the likelihood of
Hmm,
finding
real
something
old hat.
out about the
Real old
electron
hat.
when we make
Master
a measurement
ledgers,
on it.
because there's not a
Case,
compass
the
and a
wave
square
function
on the
tells
cover?
us the
A
likelihood
wad
of
stick book?
finding our electron at different points in space. The way this works is that we take the square modulus of our wave function and we find the area under the graph between 2 points.
So I know running Tesla stock numbers on Weebles and whatever else you got for stock scanners to make a faster version, and that one's got for you, but the A and B are congruent by photons. They get you to the same result if that result is in calculus. You would feel it even if I didn't calc it. I would be able to calc it because gravity. The 9.8's on the trajectory of that thing. If you factor into those evolutions, like everybody else would have to factor into those things, and they set into a positive return, there you go. That might be what you catch. This might be what you catch. You know,
in other words,
both
that's
aren't.
what the wave function has to do with our system. We can work out or calculate a wave function associated with every quantum system we're studying. Now, at this point, there are a couple of things worth mentioning. Firstly, there are some properties
your
that a wave
hydrocollider
function needs to have in order for all the mathematics to work and for everything to make sense. As much sense as possible anyway.
This is your house, right? That's your town, that's your system. Guess what?
But the other thing worth mentioning is, why on earth should there be a wave function that corresponds to a real system? Why is there this mathematical function that seems to tell us about the probability of finding our electron if we take its square modulus?
And that's the daily, weekly, monthly. It's just figuring them out on those indexes, getting your GPT-3 to do it. And I'm not just talking about GPT-3. I'm not. And I'm not just talking about stock models. I'm talking about cranking boards. I'm talking about the salty. I'm talking about the Sharps race.
Known as the wave function that behaves like this. And then this idea would have been turned into a
constant teaching, the redundant
preaching.
preachings.
For every system that gives us this sort of information that we've seen already. Maybe one day we'll get some more intuition about why this wave function exists. But the fact is that this mathematical formulation makes some ridiculously
rabbit, son, you are in my core. You will become
how the universe works. In other words, we can take this strange mathematical formulation and use it to work out how our system should behave.
Everybody wants to be a mathematician. Still time to do Ronnie Coleman shit.
And what we found so far is that all the predictions made by quantum mechanics have been verified by experiment. Anyway, so let's quickly discuss some of the properties of this wave function. The first property is that it follows what's known as the Schrödinger equation. This is the main equation in quantum mechanics, and essentially what makes a function quantum mechanical in the first place
this was,
the fact that it
for a little while, I could always hopping back up instead of changing out the marshmallow treasure chest to catch names. People who sign the ledger.
The probability
just leave it in that state. If I leave it in that experiment, the marshmallow acid test, levels of success, or don't.
Why? Again, we're not
repent it, rip it all out, put this one and this one. This way, and Tony Stark it.
The wave function cannot
be
any random function we can think of. It has to be normalizable. This means we must be able to ensure that the total area under the entire wave function
total universal utopia is a
must be a finite area
thing. Everyone wish you could like tell Thanos to step it down a little bit. You have the time stone, you deputy dumb shit.
Therefore, the probability of
I bet because you didn't have those things, you're like, no, I need all of the power stones. I need all of the fucking infinity stones to do it. Like, why couldn't you do it just one?
Somewhere within the universe,
take the one and use it.
If we tried to look for it everywhere. More on the normalization property in this video up here, and we'll discuss this last bit in the next video in this series when we look at another postulate of quantum mechanics. For now though, I'm going to finish up here. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what other physics topics you'd like me to cover down in the comments below. Check out my merch link down below as well. It's a quantum dice design based on a famous quote from Albert Einstein. Hit that like button and subscribe for more fun physics content if you enjoyed this video. Hit the bell too if you'd like to be notified when I upload. And finally, I'd like to say a huge thank you to all of my Giga patrons and all of my other patrons as well.